Alright, hello everyone, my name is DarkKnight-LL25, Dark for short. Wait, alright, sorry, fuck. Alright, hello everyone, god damn it. Alright, hello everyone, my name is DarkKnight-LL25, Dark for short, and he will continue playing BioShock. Not this. And my joystick is fucking broken. Alright, anyways, start game. Alright, I guess today's the last episode of BioShock, because I guess I'm done with everything. Alright, so I guess we're doing the director commentary, the deal, and then we're doing this game. Just done. Alright. Yeah, these are the only two things that I unlock, actually. Reality check.
Overflowing with memorable locations and set pieces. In developing a world that feels organic, lived in, and functional, Irrational managed to create a space that feels perfectly suited to the story and action that takes place in it, which begs a question: did the plot shape the location, or did the plot fit squarely into a world that was already established? Let's talk about some of the areas in Rapture, because it's an amazing place, but also it feels like there's certain areas that are very well designed. They have, a certain aesthetic and characters in there. It all kind of comes together. Ken, do you have a part of Rapture that resonates the most with you still to this day?
I think the opening is always going to be the most important to me because it's we spent a lot of time there, and it was all for me as a challenge as a narrative guy is sort of how do we set up a very complex series of events and very complex notion and all this, Andrew was so much about Big Daddies and Little Sisters and Andrew Ryan and the time period and do that all without cutscenes. And especially I think the descent to Rapture when you're in that, when you get in the bathysphere, getting that right, getting everything right down to the bathysphere, cresting the hill and seeing the city for the first time. Remember how much we worked on the timing of that? Just getting that.
And it took us forever to figure out that we should just put the slide projector covering the window. Like, again, in hindsight, it seems like such an obvious choice, but we were really trying to figure out, like, how are we going to tell this story of Ryan and then reveal this so you can see the city beyond the hill.
And also we didn't have to show the whole transition going down the bottom of the ocean because the whole screen was covered.
Spoiler alert.
I think that's the part that will always be near to my heart.
Yeah, I mean, for me it was Kashmir. That was one of the first...
The restaurant at the beginning.
Yeah, the restaurant at the beginning, because it was really like the first art box that we created that was Rapture. I mean, we created spaces before that weren't really hitting the Art Deco look. Scott Sinclair had just started, and he built that, designed and built that statue of the Atlas with the world on his shoulders that was in the middle of the room. And Mauricio had done some concept art for us of that space. And once we started putting everything together and getting it into engine, and actually walking around it and seeing those giant windows off to the side that just showed the seascape and really drove home the fact that you're underwater. It was the first time really all the elements started to come together.
And we had built a bunch of stuff, and we actually stepped back. We have to just get one move right before we go any further because we weren't getting it right. And so Mauricio did that concept drawing.
Yep.
We worked really hard on that statue, and that statue I think was the first object in the game that was in BioShock. So we just stayed in that room for like a month until we got it right.
And I think the original concept actually had a tram running through it, so it was like even more complicated, and that was one of those things where we had to keep pulling back to really focus on what the bare essence of that room was.
were there parts of Rapture that you never were able to realize, sort of still
The
messing
zoo.
around in the zoo?
We had a zoo
Frolic, right?
that I was excited about. Not everybody was excited about the zoo, but I don't know why I was excited about the zoo because it would have been a nightmare. We had another area that was prior to Arcadia that was more of a straight up agriculture forest type of area.
Before we had the bathysphere, we had a whole sort of subway transport system in Rapture. We spent a lot of time thinking about it, and then just realized that these little submersibles would be a much better, much more realistic, and much better solution.
You were going to be able to move between locations in that subway system?
Yeah, much like the bathysphere, but they were much more integrated throughout the space, and we really want to support them. And we just realized it was not really relevant to what we were doing.
Were there certain locations or areas where you knew a certain narrative point, needed to happen? Like you look at, the reveal of sort of Atlas's true motivations. Like, was that like, oh, we've got to do it this part, this level that fits the story, or was it more that we sort of like you had the game laid out in a certain order and you just laid the story on top of it?
The big one I can think of is that you encounter Ryan and his sort of like that he would live in an area of industry.
Okay.
So he lives in this very industrial area because that's where he would feel most comfortable. And that we wanted his office, his lair, to sort of be not in some residential zone, but where he wants to wake up and smell the grease fires and the machines and the smoke. That's in his lifeblood. Industry is his lifeblood.
But it also had to be very theatrical. Like if you look at it now, it doesn't look like an office. You kind of know it's an office because the story is telling you that. And we had some old technology that was laying around in the game that would control environment settings. So the old system that we had would let you do high pressure, low pressure, medium pressure, and those would affect lighting and other like post-process things in the world. And that was a system that was cut, but because the code was in, we were always trying to figure out ways to use it. And one of the ways we used it was in the Andrew Ryan sequence, because we didn't have a lot of narrative storytelling tools. We were basically switching the atmosphere to get all the lighting changes. So whenever a light changes in that scene, we're telling the game that the atmosphere is changing. So and then preset atmospheres come in and shine the spotlights on them or bring up the house lights when we need them to.
Very, very early on, you could change the pressure in areas, and that would change how explosions work and all this stuff like that. And we couldn't figure out how to make it gettable for the player. We couldn't make it feedback, but we still had all those. That moved a lot of levers into the game, so we still had the system. So we used it for these sort of theatrical cues of very theatrical cues of Ryan. If you're in the lights going down where you are, the lights coming where he is, because the engine didn't have those tools by default.
Assassin has overcome my final defense, and now he's come to murder me. In the end, what separates a man from a slave? Money? Power? No. A man chooses. A slave obeys.
There was a great sense of sort of artistic progression as you went through the game too, and that each level had its own sort of voice. Was that something that a lot of games as they move further involved, it's like, oh, we sort of ran out of time. We can, it's like we're just gonna sort of repeat this and change the color palette. It felt like the team it was very defined from early on that you wanted each sort of level, which they were leveled back in the day, to feel distinct.
Yeah, I mean, we had sort of experimented with that back in System Shock 2, back when every Doom level looked pretty much like every other Doom level, because they were just working on the same set of assets. We decided with our very rudimentary tool in System Shock 2 that we would progress with color, and every deck was built different from a color standpoint, even though most of that was lighting, not textures, nothing really more. But we have the tools to actually sort of theme levels. I think a lot of this goes back to, I think my first memory was actually from when I was 1 year old at the Montreal World Expo.
Remember when you were one?
Well, I remember being at something at this World's Fair, which I didn't realize I think was in 1967 when I was 1 year old, a little over 1 year old. And I was on a theme park ride they had and I remember being at this thing where a big bat flies out of this sort of thing and comes up. I don't know why I was 1 year old was on this ride. I'm not sure, sort of a haunted house kind of ride. And I remember loving it. And I think that stuck with me. So the notion of sort of theme parky themes and settings Disney World does a great job with Super Disney World. They theme areas. So themed areas are something that always resonated with me. And BioShock always has had this notion of feeling of theme in different areas, much more than the real world has. I mean, you walk from building to building, most and you can't really tell them apart.
Right up there.
Yeah, you walk from a floor of an office building to another floor, it's not going to look any different, but we always felt it really cool.
And it's also, I mean, if you look at SWAT 4, saw some early experiments with this, especially like the serial killer's house level in SWAT 4, which is probably one of the most dense levels that we shipped, but you were trying to tell a specific story with that. And going straight into BioShock and using the same exact engine that we're using, and we were very comfortable at that point with how the engine worked and how to art up these rooms, gave us a leg up when we sat down and really thought about what stories are we specifically trying to tell. And one of my favorite anecdotes from this time period is with Sander Cohen. I think it was Nate Wells and Stephen Alexander sat down one night, and they came up with a backstory for every dead body that you find in that space, and then they told that story with the props that they could. Even if it was just like, this guy crawled 3 feet and then shot himself in the head because he was sad about something, they put those marks in, they put a picture next to the guy, and then he shot himself. So they really like did their homework and tried to add, the backstory for everything that you're going to find in that space.
I've got Atlas's goons hitting us non-stop with 2 dead mechanics just this week. We need to control costs. If I wanted to deal with amateurs, I would have stayed on dry land.
Huh? Oh, fuck. Sorry, I was looking at my phone.
From the moment you boot up BioShock, you can feel the story grab hold of you. A plane crashes at sea, a mysterious lighthouse, a sprawling city beneath the ocean. Hooking the player from the first touch without overwhelming him with convoluted RPG mechanics was key to the success of the game and the skillful ramping up of BioShock's legendary gameplay. BioShock has an amazing opening sequence that I can't imagine the game without it. With plane and sort of crash. But I understand that didn't come online until like the very end of development. John, is that true?
We had a couple of really depressing playtests. We had built all these systems. We thought we were doing a good job of like giving basically people a playground to play with and things to do. And when we had a playtest, we didn't realize how bad of a job we were doing in exposing those systems to the player, because we were so in these systems and in our own heads, we had no idea that we just weren't facing them towards the player at all. So after that playtest, we took a long, cold look at what we were doing and realized that we had to introduce we were confident enough in the systems that they were going to be fun and meaningful to the player, but we really had to think about how we were going to introduce these systems to the player, and in such a way that they understand why the systems were there. Like, you can't ship a README file with the game and expect people to read it. Like, it has to be part of the experience. So the challenge is, how do you introduce people to these systems, but do it in such a way that it fits within the narrative? So we had to integrate all of these things into the story cleanly, so that the player felt like it was one smooth experience. And I think the zap 'em, whack 'em thing was one of those.
One-two punch.
Yeah, the 1-2 punch that came out of that.
The plane sequence at the beginning, I heard a story that like a programmer put that together in like a day or two. It was the very last thing.
So we had done a focus test, and we had it was one of the most depressing experiences in my life, because we were very close to being finished, and it was basically giving people what essentially became the demo, and people played it, and it was in Boston, and we were sort of behind these glass windows, all these sort of Boston guys, like, this is a wicked piece of shit. They hated it, and they were making fun of it, and they were saying, it's like watching some guys and dolls beating each other up, and it's the stupidest thing they've ever seen. And we thought we were in pretty good shape at that point. And I remember the focus test guy was like sort of like a doctor giving me the bad news. Sorry, Ken, you better get your affairs in order.
Right.
And we all came into work the next day. We were like, what are we gonna do? And we're all pretty depressed, but I think we started talking, and as we talked, we started thinking about what are they saying to us? What are these people saying to us? What we think there's something there. Well, how are they missing it? And we decided that there was maybe they didn't understand who they were, who their role in the, as a character, who their role in the world was, because the game at that point started with you in the ocean, floating in the ocean after the plane crash. And
The crash still was in fiction. It just wouldn't show
you
it.
just didn't see it, so you didn't have the voiceover saying, "My parents always said I was going to do great things" or whatever. That they didn't show the plane crash. We didn't establish a time period
No.
because the plane is critical to establishing. You're smoking a cigarette. It's very 1960s looking. All that stuff was established. It wasn't established, so we decided we had no time, no money, and no. So we sort of came up with a script. I wrote a line. I think Nate, one of our artists, recorded the line. Steven and Sean and those guys got to work on building this very simple sequence, which was simple, relatively simple sequence, and then the plane crash actually happens over the BioShock logo we already had, but I sort of wrote a radio play behind that with altitude, crash, and that I think set the emotion on people screaming in terror on the plane crash. That set the emotion much better and explained who the player was, and all of a sudden we released them. I think the next real encounter we had was people playing the demo of Encounter, and all of a sudden it was very different.
No, I remember even back in the day, I think we did a thing on TV where we kind of talked about it. It was like that night, and I remember that night, like people on the forum were just like going nuts. And even though the game had a lot of press attention, when people finally got to play it and go through that sequence, I just remember there was this mass sort of excitement around it, and then the game shipped only a few weeks after that, right? Or
A week later, a few days later.
It's amazing, like now to hear that, like literally like a month before the game came out, like the plane sequence came online. It was that late.
And we saw it go through certification and all that.
But I'm sure it's like within.
It wasn't far. It wasn't far. It was really last minute, and it was one of those things where like you really shouldn't be putting in content that late. But we felt that we were so close to having something good that we just rolled the dice on it, and we worked really hard on it. Like we worked really hard. I remember how much time I spent on just that recording of altitude. I could still hear the different version of that in my head. So much time on that stuff, and these guys were working on getting the animations right. And
the scene was shot in engine, but we decided to pre-render it so that we had to do less QA on it.
Right.
There was it wasn't going to be some like weird streaming error or crash error.
Wow.
It was just like we're just going to show the video. Yeah.
And it's interesting because once you start in the ocean, we had this experience of testing a lot with the water effects and how beautiful Steven's water effects were. People didn't realize they were out of a cutscene, and so they would just sit there and stare, and then they pick up the controller. And they pick up a controller, and all of a sudden they realize they're controlling it. But that, as Sean said, that part of the plane is not actually interactive. It was done in the engine, but we just filmed it.
Now, as people were playing through the game and we were testing it, I'm sure there was debate about when would you introduce these plasmids, what would the ramp be? Did that change at all, sort of as you got towards the end of development, about like, oh, we're going to give people the gun at this point, or it's like we're going to trigger these plasmids at this point? Like, how did that work?
So, like, we moved guns around. Like, for instance, there was a big debate about originally you found a gun in the lighthouse, a pistol in the lighthouse.
Oh, right there.
And because it's a shooter, right? Like, what the hell? And we had a lot of debates about it. I feel that it was important that we didn't do that because the fact that you sort of go through a lot of the experience without having the distraction of a gun is important to getting you immersed in the world. Because when you have all you have is a hammer, everything is nailed, right? But you don't have the hammer, so you just sort of had to take in the world and have that feeling of fear. And like I know when you saw that splicer bounding around on the ceiling, that you couldn't do anything about it. And that had even though
those are those moments, right? Like I remember when I played Unreal for the first time, where it's like you're trapped and there's a monster and you can't do it, and the lights go out. It's like that's the moment with the splicer where you're like, I want to do something but I can't, and that evokes an emotion.
I remember we kept, moving where the machine gun appeared around and where various plasmids appeared around. It was it's a real fine-tuning process.
Yeah, and it gave us an opportunity, like, especially with the shotgun, to really present the weapons, like put some space between them.
It's a moment when you finally.
Yeah, I think
we get the shotgun Paul sequence.
Paul Hellquist was he put the sequence together for the when you see the shotgun laying in the pool of light, and like every game developer knows what that means, you know. You know the minute you pick that thing up, something's going to happen, but it's still a very effective way, because I'm remembering it to, oh look, I've been waiting for this thing, I'm going to pick it up, and now you have an immediate opportunity to use it, but you know, at the same time, we're trying to ramp up the tension level by having the splicers kind of on the outside of the light, so you can't really see them and coming in one at a time and attacking you.
And we had very few tools to really control how the splicers acted. So how they were set up and how the environment was lit was really important. You know,
Well, there's even other things like when you get the TK plasmid, I don't think we had a lot of physical space and opportunity and time to really present that, so we came up with the narrative that, you know, it's the doctor's office and he used TK to practice tennis. And we had the turret in there that threw tennis balls at you. So if you wanted to, you could catch the tennis balls and throw them, and you could knock things down. I think it revealed pickups that you could then, you know, pull to yourself with TK. But we're always trying to think of like little backstories that we could do. It doesn't have to be as involved as the shotgun ambush. Sometimes it's just, oh, let's take a grenade turret and turn it into a tennis ball turret.
Because we wanted, yeah, like, and I remember like the impulse was, you know, I've been to dentist office, and there's always some like weird aspect of the dentist personality. They always want to get through their office, you know. They just have to have their hobby featured in some way, and so we saw an opportunity there to both feature this, he's a tennis nut, and teach TK at the same time.
And
Alright, so I'm guessing that's it. Oh. I guess museum time. And I didn't see what I said, but okay. Oh. Yeah, I'm not gonna read all that shit. The last time I was here, I didn't have like enough time. Alright. The concept of using tree for oxygen made into the phone game. Oh, that. Alright. And this. This. Gather? You. I don't know which one's the face. Oh, it was reclaim Adam from corpse or rapture. Oh, then sketch a moment for the little sisters. So, okay. And this side is the big daddies. Solo Pro Foam. Alright, it's a big daddy with rocket launchers. What are these? Like, does it probably like hit you? Or probably like a punch above iron? I don't know how to describe it. Early bouncer. There is no I need to cough. This original mod for a bouncer type of Big Daddy featured a flathead drill at the end of each arm. The Big Daddies were blah 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 as the builders of Rapture. Alright. So I say blah 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 as I'm not gonna read all this stuff. This thing, oh my god. Stishy. The first splicer for BioShock, Stishy. Why did the name is Stishy? I don't know, there's not like Stish around it. Oh yeah, I could go through here. I can see. Nice view. Alright. I guess it probably like his guts. This looks like a monster that could be in Resident Evil. Early Splicer concept art. Alright. Oh, this one. Early Splicer concept art also. And this looks like a monster from Little Nightmares. Yep, that one. So I go through here to see where we are. Actually, wait, hold on. Pre-yam hand. Okay. Pre-yam yam. Sounds weird, but okay. Early splasher concept art. Alright. Early big day concept art. Wait. Wait, this ain't a splasher? Doesn't look like it. Big day, Big day. Alright. Oh wait, I didn't see this. Whoa. They look like Big Day part squid, kind of like the tentacles that come out of my body. Protector concept art. Protector concept art. Alright. This one? Alright. Protector concept art. Basically, it's the same thing. What is this? Grenader splasher. What's that behind him? What that? I think like on the back. What's that? Oh, that's where the bombs is. Okay. Grenade splashers. Grenader. Alright. Splasher. Alright. Wait. Stishy and Hooker. Who's Hooker? Early environmental study. Alright. Neptune bounty concept art. Oh wait, this is... Oh, this is Hooker. Alright, Hooker. So I guess they got this idea from the Hooker to turn to, I guess, the Spire Slashers. The four of these look like the vulture's foot. Oh, the vulture robotic feet from Spider-Man Far From Home. Wait, no, Homecoming. Alright, Hooker then. I always wonder how they I always wonder how the splicers attach themselves to the ceiling. Now I know how. Because they have that little thing on their foot. Fleet Hall concept art. Alright. Yeah, Fleet Hall concept art. Alright, yep. And this one is Iconic Rapture? Wait, Iconic Rapture concepts. Alright. I'm not gonna read like the whole description. I mean, you could just pause my view and read it for yourself if you wanted to, actually. Big Day concept art. Oh, I see it now. I said, where's the Big Day? Right there. What is this? Sub-Bay concept art. This looks like it's a kind of alien isolation area. What's this one? Yam hand model. Yam hand. Ham? Yam hand. Yep. Yam hand. Alright. Did this thing have eyes? Wait, I guess it does? I don't know. I guess this guy armed supposed to be some kind of reptilian squid? Not blue, why is this in there? Reptilian squid. Early creature concept, alright. This looks like a human rat hybrid or something. Early creature concept. His head looked like the creature from Star Wars, I forgot what it's called. But I like the toy of that from Star Wars. Yeah, that I forgot what it's called. Oh wait, fuck. What am I doing? Early Big Day concept art. Alright. And slime from slug. Blood on inside of glass ports. Tarnished brass. Ass. Don't know why I say ass. And what's this one? Oh, whoops. Missing link. Wait, missing link model. Alright. Well, I'm guessing that's it. Unless there's like something back here. Oh wait, there's like that big bending? There's that big painting all the way right here. How cool if I could read that. Oh wait, I could. Wait. Fuck. Wait. Let me, there we go. Iconic Rapture concepts, alright. Alright, that's a big painting. I guess, well, wait. Wait. Something up here. What? Exhibit hanging sea life. What? No, what says it? Oh. Exhibit hanging sea life. Oh, so basically this thing. It's a kind of whale skeleton. Oh, I'm guessing that's it. I guess. I mean, what more I could do? Oh, that was different back. Alright. Oh, well. I guess that's it. And that's a good time too. Yeah, like 11:51. Alright. Fuck. I mean, I didn't get all the director commentary. I don't think I'm never going to do that. In the future, I might come back to the game so I could get the director commentary. Who knows? And what? Alright, I'm going to end my video right here. I will not continue playing this game tomorrow. I'll repeat everything BioShock 1 and BioShock 2. So that means tomorrow I'm going to play BioShock Infinite, finally. And then after that I'm going to play the Plague of Innocence. And yeah. And then I'll play other horror games, and then Halloween, The Last of Us, and The Last of Us Left Behind, and then The Last of Us 2. And Christmas I'm going to play Subnautica Below Zero. So anyways, if you guys like, yeah. So anyways, if you guys like the video, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification button to support more videos on my channel. Playing BioShock for me is BioShock 1 and BioShock 2 is good. Hard, but it's good. And I'll see y'all next time. Yeah, bye. Oh yeah, by the way, I really don't know what BioShock Infinite gonna be about. All I know is it's not gonna take place in the underwater sea. You're gonna take place in the sea in the sky. So I really don't know what it's gonna be about. And I really don't know how long BioShock Infinite gonna be. I really don't know. Yeah, forgot to tell you that. Sorry. Alright, that's all I gotta say. So anyways, if you guys like the video, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification button to go watch more videos on my channel. And I'll see y'all next time. Yep.